She swore that she did the surgery correctly. However, she couldn't explain how the optic nerve got cut or why this gentleman had permanent nerve damage and blindness in his one eye. Would you like to learn what this is about? Come join me as I share with you this remarkable story. Hi, I'm Gerry Oginski. I'm a New York medical malpractice and personal injury trial lawyer practicing law in the state of New York. The gentleman had suffered a fracture of his entire orbit of his eye, and now there was a bone that trapped the muscle of his eye so that now his eye was pointing out that way. If he covered one eye, he could see perfectly. But the ophthalmologist he went to said, not a problem, I can fix it. All I have to do is now fix the fracture using an implant, a titanium implant, and now it will release that muscle, so now the eye will revert back to normal. So the gentleman said, fine, no problem. Well, they have the surgery done, the doctor believes everything went well, and now on the next day she goes into his room, takes the patch off and says, okay, what do you see? And you know what he says? Did you take the patch off? And she now examines him, gets him into an MRI immediately, realizes there's a problem, comes back to him and says, listen, I have to get you back into surgery immediately. I got to fix something. She never tells him what the problem is. What I later learned from this doctor during the course of this patient's lawsuit was that she thought that the implant may have been too close to the patient's eye, building up pressure in the optic nerve, and that explained why he couldn't see. And so she felt that by moving the implant away from the optic nerve, now that will give him back his vision. But what she did not tell the patient is that during the second surgery, when she went back in to find out what was going on, the optic nerve had actually been cut, severed, so that now there was physically no possible way for this gentleman to get his eyesight back. And so even though she did move that implant away, the damage was permanently done. But what was amazing was that the doctor said to the patient, your surgery went great and there's absolutely no problem. It was only after that second surgery, and now she takes the patch off after the following day and says, what do you see? The patient says, I can't see anything. Does she finally admit to the patient, listen, there's a problem. I think the optic nerve may have been damaged. And then she has the gall, the nerve to tell this patient, by the way, this was a risk of the procedure. Well, I had a chance to question this doctor at her question and answer session known as a deposition during this lawsuit. And I said, doctor, how many times have you done this procedure to use an implant to fix the bones in the eye socket? She said, oh, in the course of my career, only a handful of times. I said, would you agree that there are specialists known as neuro-ophthalmologists? She said, yes. Would you agree, doctor, that that type of specialist is in a better position and typically has more experience dealing with nerve injuries and problems like these than you, a general ophthalmologist, does? Yes, I would. Can you explain to me, doctor, why you chose not to call a neuro-ophthalmologist in to fix this particular problem? Well, I thought I had the experience necessary to do it. Would you agree that if you had called in a neuro-ophthalmologist, there's a much better likelihood that that neuro-ophthalmologist, that expert, would have had a better outcome and in all likelihood would not have cut this patient's optic nerve? Yes, I would. And basically, that's exactly what happened here. This doctor didn't have the experience necessary to treat this patient. So why do I share this great information with you? I share it with you just to give you an insight and an understanding into one particular tragic case that I was able to help a gentleman get compensation for the injuries that he suffered as a result of a doctor violating the basic standards of medical care. You know, as always, I realize if you have legal questions, what I encourage you to do is pick up the phone and call me. I can answer your legal questions. This is something I do every single day and I'd love to talk to you. You can reach me at 516-487-8207 or by email at Gerry, G-E-R-R-Y, at oginski-law.com. That's it for today's quick video. I'm Gerry Oginski. Have a wonderful day.